Greetings, and welcome to episode 11 of Ending the Sexual Dark Age. I'm JV Altheros, and I'm pleased to say that the show has made it past the first big milestone. A lot of podcasts die without ever making it past the first 10 episodes. It's called pod fading. This is not one of those shows, not by a damn sight. I get more new listeners every episode, and a lot of that is thanks to you guys telling your friends. Actually, ending the sexual dark age is something I'm beginning to look at as a life's work of sorts, and with every new show, things get a little brighter. Plus, my listeners are awesome, and they ask really intelligent questions for me to run off at the mouth about, which makes doing these listener mail episodes more fun every time around. One thing I'd like to ask the audience is how you're feeling about the fact that the show's been running a little bit longer lately. My original target was around half an hour an episode, but I'm finding it really hard to keep them that short while still having a decent amount of time to cover the subject matter and get Shara on the microphone for a little bit. There have been 3 episodes over 40 minutes now, and I just want to make sure that's not too long to keep you guys entertained. Without further ado, I'll get right into Listener Mail Volume 3 with some talk on sex toys. Derek had some great feedback on the repro cocks that I mentioned in episode 8, Create a Mate being one of the many brand names out there. He says it was a lot of fun to make, but also to buy an extra package of the molding powder because you will screw it up the first time around. He goes on to say that timing is absolutely critical, so follow the directions exactly. And that the most entertaining part of the whole process was having his girl keep him at full salute while he was trying to focus on mixtures and curing times. He also makes a great point referring back to episode 2 when I said it's difficult for a guy to see his cock the way women do as a matter of angles and perspective. Once you've got a silicone clone of your dick and you see it laying there on the kitchen table, you'll realize how big you actually are. I'd bet good money that 1, you're bigger than you think you are, and 2, you'll feel better about the size of your tool. Derek also asked for a good informational website on BDSM techniques and practices that didn't have a bunch of malware and something that was more than just page after page of porn videos, which is what you usually do anytime you Google BDSM. Well, if you use a more targeted search like BDSM techniques, you're more likely to get the type of site you're looking for, including a great resource site called frugaldom.com. And that's the female expression, so it's spelled D-O-M-M-E. If you stop by sexualdarkage.com, there's a link in the post for this episode. It's a pretty thorough collection of unbiased instruction, philosophy, and precautions in the form of articles and links to other specialized sites. I'll be doing a BDSM show somewhere around the first of the year, and until then, Frugal Dom can provide all kinds of technical and practical info for anyone curious in reading up on the nuts and bolts of kink. That brings me smoothly to something posted on the website by Curious Kitty. She writes, I'm a female that is wondering your view and experiences on threesomes, 2 girls and a guy. I have had a couple before and it was good. Sometimes, though, I find it hard not to wonder if the other woman is better than me at things that I know I do well. I want to be able to please both partners without having that in my head at times. Curious Kitty also added in another post that she is a bisexual submissive. Well, since you asked about my experiences, my official policy on threesomes is that while I've had a whole bunch of them, I haven't had enough. I've had plenty in both combinations, and with the right people, a good time definitely can be had by all. But there's definitely also some baggage that comes along with it. Your concern embodies the biggest intellectual and emotional hurdle for a lot of people regarding threesomes, especially if you're in a relationship bringing other people in. It's a much different dynamic than swinging with another couple, and anyone is more likely to feel self-conscious and a little competitive. That doesn't have to be a bad thing if you learn to channel those emotions. Try to remember that sexuality can't be measured on a scale or with a meter, so even though your instincts will force you to cringe a little when you perceive that the other girl might be doing something better than you based on whatever you're seeing, just try thinking of it more like different or new. Group sex is an adventure that you go on with other people, and you're meant to learn things along the way and to see new things. The group sex episode will go into this in greater detail, but group play allows you to go lots of places that simply aren't mathematically possible with 2 people. If you're in a relationship and playing on the team side in the threesome, you gain a perspective on what your playmate likes that you simply can't get when you're doing everything yourself. The inherent perspective shift of becoming an observer as well as a playmate can be a little jarring, and I think you might be experiencing some of that. Great sex is a learning experience, and anytime you perceive another woman to be doing something better than you, it's an opportunity for you to learn a new trick and become a more skilled lover, whether you're learning by watching or asking. If you focus on that perspective, it can become like a game and a source for a new kind of fun. Since you're already enjoying group play, you're past a lot of the pitfalls already, obviously. I'm going to suggest that you sit down outside play with your dom and tell him that this is something that you're working on for yourself. Helping submissives explore their sexuality is part and parcel of being a dominant, and actually one of the most rewarding aspects of taking on that role. And believe me, any guy rolling around with 2 naked women is more than happy to play stunt cock, while one of you demonstrates some cock-handling technique for the other. It's a unique little psychological high for the guy, so you'd actually be doing him a favor too. Having him instruct your third playmate to show you something will take some of the burden off of you, and in fact, it's his job to help. Rewarding and successful group play requires one of you to play a part that's pretty much half ringmaster and half den mother, constantly keeping an eye out to make sure everyone's having a good time. In your role as a submissive, that position defaults to the dominant in a threesome with another sub. This is actually an easier task in a sausage-heavy threesome, since a woman's got 3 holes to work with and there are plenty of entertaining combinations. So it's a little bit more complicated with 2 women, but it's still definitely a job that needs to be done. It's a job that the dominant is probably already focusing on doing, and he needs to have all the information in order to do it properly. You're already sexually confident enough to enjoy group play with this one hang-up, so if you can get your dom to support you in reshaping these lingering concerns into a chance to make yourself an even more skilled submissive, I'm betting you can get past them in short order. Liz posted some fun stuff regarding blowjobs on the website that I want to share with you guys. She writes, "This last weekend, my boyfriend and I played a fun new game in which I gave my man 3 minutes of oral every hour on the hour. The rules stated that it didn't matter what we were doing, we needed to drop everything and find somewhere to drop trow as soon as the alarm went off. This resulted in a couple instances of roadhead, a chilly Hummer behind some bushes in the park, and 2 wake-me-up blowjobs during the day. We plan to try different variations of this game in the future, including one in which we start out with 15 minutes of head and every hour reduce that time by 1 minute. Ultimately, it was a ton of fun, a little risky, and my man has been wearing a shit-eating grin for 2 days, as if he doesn't get plenty of blowjobs under normal circumstances." First off, thanks for posting the game, Liz. I called Shara and I shared it with her as soon as I saw it, and we will be trying it out Thanksgiving weekend. I love sex games, beyond the obvious reasons, and I'm always looking for new ways to put more fun in fornication. I'm betting more than a few listeners will decide to join us in giving your little game a whirl. I've always had this policy in relationships that I reserve the right to grab, grope, fondle, lick, suck, or otherwise molest my girl at any time, no matter how seemingly random, and that I extend that right to her in exchange. Literally, if I say titties, Shara lifts up her shirt so I can play with them. I'll walk up behind her and play with her clit through her pants without any warning at all. She often comes in the room asking me to whip out my cock so she can give it a kiss and play with it for a minute. She especially likes squeezing the head to make it look like it's talking while she's doing a cute little voiceover. It isn't really foreplay since it's just a minute or 2 of fun, but it does wonders for intimacy, keeping sexual communication open and the all-important step of keeping both of us horny and sexually assertive with each other. It's more like a grand scheme kind of foreplay than the immediate run-up to sex that we usually picture. Everyone out there should be looking for ways to put more sexy fun into their lives, and I bet all of you can come up with some fun games of your own, and I bet plenty of you have got fun games you're already playing. Anyone willing to share theirs with the rest of us, I'm all ears." Liz went on to say, "P.S. Something you didn't really make a point to say during your pole smoking episode was that women shouldn't be afraid to be sloppy with the spit. I was always very neat about it until I had a guy that kept demanding that I get it wetter. I honestly had no idea that men were in no way concerned about us girls drooling all over their crotches. As soon as I learned this important tip, my skill improved overnight." Well, Liz, that is an excellent point and something I didn't think to include, but the rest of you girls need to take notice of what Liz is saying. We really don't care. We don't. Not even a little. And a whole lot of us kind of like a sloppy blowjob. See, if you're drooling on the tool, it means that you like what you've got in your mouth, and that's an instinctive turn-on to a guy, whether he realizes why or not. So there's nothing for you to feel self-conscious or embarrassed about. In response to Liz's comment, Gib also posted, "I'd just like to point out that every guy has different preferences, but one thing I can't stand is a girl literally spitting while giving a blowjob. I have no issues with her intentionally being clean or intentionally being sloppy, but when they stop what they're doing just so they can spit on it, it just doesn't make any fucking sense. However, you probably meant something entirely different. See various porn videos for reference." I definitely know what you're talking about, Gib, and while Liz was just talking about the freedom to be sloppy, the spitting thing has never made any sense to me either. I suspect it's some kind of a crossover from spitting on a cock to lube it up for a hand job without actually sticking it in your mouth, so it has an immediate overtone of high school sex. I've never found it sexy, and I've actually asked women to stop doing it, but some guys probably do enjoy it. That's just one of those different strokes type of things. Most of us find it unsexy, so I'd recommend to the women that they leave it out or at least don't do it all the time. It's a good example of how porn can foster bad habits. I don't know many guys who really want to see a close-up of a gaping asshole, but porn gives us plenty of those too. In my pursuit of an ever better understanding of human sexual psychology, I would invite any guy out there who actually enjoys a spit and polish job to drop me a line to let me know what it is that turns you on about it, or any of the girls who have had guys ask you to do it, tell us a story. Next we have a listener named This Be Me, who says, "So, you're open to talking about any aspect of human sexuality. Please discuss the attraction and moral dilemma adult humans have towards younger humans who have hit pubescence and often sexual awareness, but are not considered legal in the U.S. For example, the female teachers molesting her young teenage students are just a general example of an adult male attracted to a Lolita. I'd be interested to hear what your enlightened opinion has towards this and if you think there should be or is shame involved." This is certainly a more serious topic, but I'm happy to share my thoughts on the jumbled collection of policies and philosophies that we've got in the Western world. The proliferation of both cheerleader and hot teacher porn all over the internet is a pretty clear indication that the attraction is present on both ends of the spectrum, and porn sites for women certainly cater to the football player and teacher fantasies as well. We're all biologically programmed to respond sexually to young, attractive, virile people. It's an evolutionary impulse present in all of us. But the way we choose to exist as a society is a reflection of how we rein in and express our various evolutionary impulses. Men and women are in the same boat on this, so for a given adult, some amount of attraction towards attractive teens is certainly unavoidable. They're attractive people, they're growing into adults, and we recognize attractive adults. No, noticing that your teenage kids' friends are hot is not wrong. In fact, if you have eyes, it's going to happen. But there's a big difference between a wandering mind and actually doing anything about it. The legal age of consent in the U.S. varies from 14 to 18, depending on the state, so it's clear that the whole country isn't even on the same page. Still, while it's easy to debate whatever given age might be right, the effort to maintain a civilized society requires us to have an age of consent and an overall sense of order. And I mean, really, even if you believe it's okay for 14-year-olds to be fucking, I think most of us can get together on the idea that if they're fucking, they should be fucking other teenagers. States with low ages of consent also create this weird situation in which, for example, two 16-year-olds can have legal sex, but be charged with distributing child pornography if either of them texts a picture of it. Believe it or not, there are actually some pending cases around the country springing out of similar circumstances. Yes, kids, it's okay to do it once you're 16, but if you take a picture of it, you can go to jail. Right. Makes perfect sense. The root of all this, though, is the need for all of us to find a balance between our evolutionary impulses and civilized society. Teenagers mature faster now than they did when I was one, and we grew up pretty fucking quickly. There are certainly cases of teens seducing significantly older people. Hell, I participated in a few of those cases back in the day, so I know what of I speak. But in most cases with a big age difference, with the exception of the most sexually precocious teens, the adult is going to be the initiator, and the adult is the one who should know better. When the age difference is just a few years, life experience and maturity level very well might be about the same between two people. But when you're talking about people in their late 20s and older getting busy with teenagers, I just can't see any valid argument for what we know as adult love. Well, I can certainly see the point of anyone who gets seduced by a sexually aggressive teen, which is in a way getting taken advantage of themselves. They still have to know that it's a fucking terrible idea on basically every level. As far as adults seducing teens, I really can't find an angle on the concept that doesn't force me to conclude that it's predatory in one way or another. Even if that's not the intent, I believe that it's kind of innately so. As far as the last part of your original question, I don't think there should be shame involved, but only because I don't condone the use of shame as a means of control at all. I'm a big fan of advancing civilization, however, and if you're past your early 20s and shopping for high school ass of any vintage, I think you're falling short of the mark on civilized. We all look back on our teenage years and see so many places where we were just naive fucking idiots, because teenagers just don't have a lot of life experience, especially in the area of relationships and the manipulation that can come along with them. For a full-on grown-up to be chasing teenage ass, it's like playing with an unfair advantage, and it's just really not fucking civilized. To get to our last listener question of the episode, Jim writes, "Here's some background on mine and my girl's sexual track record and such. We have been together for 5 years and have been sexually active for about 4. We use condoms, which sucks for me, but it's safer than a baby, and we have sex, if I'm lucky, about twice a week. Again, that really blows. I am trying, with advice from your show, to get her to be more sexually explorative. I do just about everything for her, and I get jack shit in return except maybe a 2-minute condom-laden suck job. I mean, I eat her pussy, flick the bean, and fuck her in a number of positions, but I can't seem to get any appreciation. My question is there anything I can do to help the situation? And what can I do when she says, "Is that all you think about?" I mean, of course it fucking is. I'm a guy. Now, obviously, my heart went out to Jim, so I emailed him with a couple of follow-up questions, and he added, "We don't live together right now due to money and being college students, but we are in the stage of our lives when we are contemplating getting engaged and such. When we started dating, I was 18 and she was 16. I tend to pay attention to the little things and really dig into what she is saying when she says it. As far as when she asks if that's all I think about, she usually says that because I really enjoy just taking in how she looks when she's just doing stuff around her house, and I make it a point to point out when she looks good, which to me is all the time. Also, she has some body image issues like most girls do, and no matter what I say, she looks in the mirror and sees all of her trouble areas, so I lose constantly in that area." Well, Jim, it sounds to me like the root of your problem is that your sex life seems to still be in high school. It's obvious you really love this girl and are trying to move forward into a more adult sexual relationship than what you've had up to this point. It's perfectly natural. Dude, you're a guy in your early 20s. You're supposed to want to be fucking all the time. Ideally, you have a girl in her early 20s who also wants to be fucking all the time. So believe me, I do understand the conflict. Relationships that start in high school don't usually survive too long into adulthood. It certainly happens. I have friends who met in high school and have been happily together for over 20 years. And one of my sisters is married to her high school sweetheart. Still, a high school relationship that goes long-term certainly isn't the norm. And there are some unique but manageable challenges to overcome. It sounds like you're in the middle of more than one of those. There's a natural process of sexual exploration that happens when anyone goes from one playmate to another to another. You're introduced to something new by everyone you fuck for any period of time, and breakups cause some pretty intense self-reflection. You wonder what you could have done better or differently, and those experiences shape the way you look at sex and relationships. Eventually, every ex finds someone new, and if the wounds are still fresh, then we obsess over whether their new playmate is a better fuck or willing to do things we weren't. It's a totally natural process. Your sexuality is almost forced to evolve as you go from one playmate to the next. She's never had to go through any of that, and from your description of your sex life, I'm betting that what you're getting now is about what you were getting in the back seat after school. Refusing to touch a cock unless it's wrapped up in latex is something a woman is meant to grow out of. Teenage girls tend to be sexually selfish because they can get away with it. It's normal to be in a relationship for some extended period of time while the guy tries everything he can think of to figure out how to get more than a feel through her panties. Eventually, when they do spread their legs, they feel like they've done you the biggest favor in the world. That's okay, because when you're a teenage boy, they have done you the biggest favor in the world, and you both know it. Without a string of breakups behind her, a woman might not naturally come to the realization that there comes a time in sexual maturity where spreading your legs stops being enough to please a man, and that guys are no longer willing to climb Mount fucking Everest to service them just to get access to one hole out of 3. So, Jim, what you're dealing with here is definitely not unprecedented, and I can make a suggestion to help the situation, but it's not without some risk. Women often make very justified complaints that we don't tend to be open in talking about our feelings and, the health of our relationship. If they want to have a serious health of the relationship conversation, they generally have to start it themselves. In this case, you're the one that needs to have a conversation that will never happen unless you start it. You want to move forward with perfectly normal adult exploration of sexuality, but you can't because she just isn't on the same page as you. If you want any meaningful change, you'll have to decide if it's worth the risk. Sit her down and tell her that you can't see how your relationship can move forward at all if it can't move forward sexually. That will set off the "what if he dumps me" warning bells, which actually are appropriate for the situation even if you have no intention of dumping her. She needs to know that it's an important conversation and something that is important to you. Tell her that you feel like you're still having high school sex, and you've tried everything you could possibly think of to figure out how to make her want to explore, and the only thing left was to come right out with it. If there's some reason she doesn't want sex more often that she hasn't shared with you, you might get it out of her. Remember, talking about it is something you have to learn how to do as well, so she may have never done that. So, you want to give her the opportunity. But at the very least, she needs to know that your unhappiness with your sex life is something that she can't just shrug off. Be aware that you are opening the door for an "or else" scenario. She might ask, well, what if I like our sex life just fine and I'm not going to give you any more? Whatever your answer to that question, have it ready beforehand. You might also gain some ground on all your sexual tension or warm her up for the conversation if you can get her listening to this show. As you know, I pull no punches, and you're not risking anything by having me tell her that she needs to start acting like she should get eaten at the grown-ups table. As far as her inability to take a compliment, this is also a very common issue because a lot of women, caused by a whole lot of factors, we're not going to get into all this today, but a lot of women have very severe body image issues, even beautiful women that don't realize that they're attractive. With a little bit of dedication, you can simply overpower her on that. Depending on your personal level of game, anything from totally smooth to intentionally cheesy will work for this. When you tell her she looks hot and she says, oh, is that all you think about? Tell her you don't have a choice when she's around. Tell her she's crazy if she can't see how pretty she is. Tell her you're thankful every day for the love of a beautiful woman. Tell her over and over and over and fucking over again, and eventually it will start to sink in. Better body image for her will translate to a better attitude towards everything in life, including and especially sex. One final note for you, Jim. You mentioned that you're at the time in your life when you're contemplating getting engaged. Please do not feel any sort of pressure based on how old you are or the fact that you're getting out of college soon or whatever. If you decide to get engaged, do it because you've got a best friend that you can connect with on all the important levels. Sex is one of many important levels, but if you're already getting lousy sex when you walk down the aisle, the relationship eventually will come off the rails. Probably after several years of lousy sex and the stress created by lousy sex. It's a no-win situation. One final note for all the girls, just because Jim mentioned it. Condoms and blowjobs in a relationship? Fucking really? Come on! It actually didn't even occur to me to mention this in the last episode, but I'd like to officially ask. What the fuck? The argument is there for casual sex, and I'll go into that on the safe sex episode. But in a monogamous relationship, there's simply no fucking excuse for it, just like there's no fucking excuse for covering your pussy with saran wrap before licking it. Put on your big girl panties and get over the gross factor. Who the fuck wants to lick latex anyway? That's about 3 different kinds of nasty. Wrapping a cock before sucking it is the same thing as telling your man that you don't like his cock at all, and that is not the basis for anything but self-doubt and a wandering eye. Remember, girls, your man's entire sexual attitude towards you is based on how well and how often you suck his cock. When you're in a relationship, putting a rubber on it is the same as him asking you to put a bag over your head while he's fucking you. Yes, it's that much of an insult, even if the sexual dark age has him too emasculated to realize it. All right, so now we have Shara joining us. I know you've been looking forward to talking about some of these topics that I got into on the listener mail episode today. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I can't believe I'm already blushing.
I can. All right, so the first thing we were talking about, and I know you and I have discussed this before, and we've never, dropping like $100 at the dildo shop on one thing that might or might not work. We never really decided that we wanted to do that. But I know you would like to have a duplication of my cock, to carry it around.
Can you blame me?
Well.
Seriously, can you blame me?
Come on, how's a guy going to answer that question? But, yeah, Derek gave some tips, and I think maybe I'll try to figure out how to drum up that money for Christmas and, maybe make that your Christmas present.
Oh, I would love that.
And, of course, I would probably be the first guy in history to, make the Christmas present of my cock actually fly.
Well, I mean, just imagine when you're doing the podcast, the part of it that does not include me, I could be off in the bedroom with a duplicate of you.
As opposed to being off in the bedroom with something that is not a duplicate of me, which is pretty much what you do now.
Well, a girl has to keep herself busy.
All right. And I mentioned to you earlier, Derek asked for a BDSM resource website. I told him about frugaldom.com. Do you have any other sites? I know you got into kink primarily through the internet. Are there any other sites you can think of that are good, like resource-only sites that are safe to surf and are not just a bunch of videos?
I don't have it with me because you usually ask me these questions without me having any prep, which is good. I like that. But I will look back at my notes because I do have a couple sites, and then you can share it with him, or I can. Yeah, no,
just post it post it as a comment on the website for the episode.
But you did pick a good choice. That is a good choice.
Good. Now, next, we have Curious Kitty, who is a bisexual submissive, one of my favorite flavors of people.
Mine, too.
Who's asked for some advice on how to feel. I don't want to use the word jealous, because she didn't use the word jealous, but, she feels tense when she perceives that in a threesome with male dominant and another submissive, that the other woman is doing something better than her.
If I remember correctly, because you share those with me so I can think about things, one of the things that she said was that her concern is if that person, something that she's really good at, she's concerned that the other submissive is as good or better than she is. And a couple things I think. You've always made me feel very secure. And I think that that's important. I'm not sure if this is her dominant that she's with. And
yeah, she doesn't specify.
But just in general, if somebody is with another couple or if it's a threesome or a foursome, I think it's very important that the people that are involved all make sure to nurture each person to make sure that they all feel secure. And I think that especially if you're in a dominant submissive relationship, that the dominant needs to make sure that the submissive is extremely comfortable with entering into a threesome or a foursome, which you've done with me many times. You've made sure that it's very comfortable.
Curious Kitty has had good experiences with threesomes, so she's kind of past all the beginning stuff. But I know the fact that I make sure you're always getting plenty of attention keeps you from feeling jealous. Mm-hmm. But is there anything else that you would suggest to her that might help, get her in a good headspace?
Well, it sounds to me like she's very secure about herself. And I think that that's the thing that you have to, really remember is making sure that you are secure with yourself and that you feel good about yourself inside. I don't think it matters if a woman is, the other woman, I should say, is skinny or heavier set or prettier. I think that it's important that you yourself love yourself for who you are and what you bring into that relationship at that moment. Everybody is better at something than another person. So you have something that the other person doesn't have. And getting into that moment, enjoying that moment for everything that it is all about loving yourself and enjoying the people that you're with.
Well, I also told him that, no self-respecting dominant is going to, refuse to play stunt cock, which is also certainly appropriate information.
Yes.
Especially in kinky threesome situations, being totally honest with the dominant, that in order for the dominant to do their job, they have to have all the information.
Yes. And I think that I've always been very honest with you and open with you. And I think that that's why our relationship is so successful, because you're the same with me. And I think that that's extremely important. And even bringing in a third or fourth person, often you have met with another dominant beforehand to know what the other submissive's all about, and you sharing what I'm all about makes that moment all work for everybody.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that in a lot more detail when we get to the group sex episode.
Oh, wow, I can't wait.
Because group sex is fun, so talking about group sex, I'm sure will be fun as well.
I think that should be a holiday topic.
And Liz also mentioned something that slipped through the cracks when I was doing the blowjob episode last week, that women, and this is absolutely true, that women need to not be self-conscious at all about how much they drool on the tool. Very true. Because guys, for the most part, there's always room for personal preference, and some guy who doesn't like it is probably going to say something about it, but most guys don't care at all. And Gibb then responded that while slobbering is fine, he really doesn't like girls that will stop and spit on it, which I agree too. It's just not, it's one of those things that just seems unsexy to me. It's unsexy whether you're spitting a mouthful of jizz into the toilet or spitting some spit onto my cock or fucking whatever. It's just not a sexy sound, or like you got a pube caught in your teeth.
Where is that dental floss when you need it?
Exactly. Well, apparently it's already in your teeth in that case.
I don't like the spitting either, but that's a personal preference for me. I like to feel sexy.
No, when you're talking with your girlfriends, about smut and cocks and all that other stuff you like to, pretend you don't talk about. Does that kind of topic ever come up? Is is amount of saliva or whether or not to spit on the thing, does that ever come up in conversation, or am I forging into new territory?
I have to say it's never come up with us. I'm sure there's a couple of listeners out there that probably have talked about it, but because the group of women that I usually am with are non-spitters, it's not an issue.
Oh, so you discriminate. Well, I say you better be careful, girls. You can get, even the Pink Mafia can discriminate against you for spitting on
We would welcome them in our group anyway. I'm just saying the current group, we're all non-spitters.
All right, and I wanted to make sure that I got a little bit from you on all the topics that I covered today, so we've only got a couple left.
Okay.
The next one is This Be Me from the website, asking for opinions on relationships with teenagers with a huge age discrepancy, like teachers and older guys getting involved with teenage girls, guys in their, Lolitas, girls who are maybe 16, 17 years old, running around with guys who are in their 30s and 40s. I ran
or
down
women teachers that are, there's a lot of that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that was one of the examples. Yeah,
Okay.
female teachers going after the male students. Yeah, because you girls are just as slutty and horny as we are. You're just better at hiding it.
We enjoy good-looking things as well. That's all it is.
Yes, there's no deviance that a man is capable of that a woman is not always capable of. Having to be better at hiding it most of the time. But so, what do you have any opinions at all on that whole phenomenon? I mean, what do you think about the topic?
Well, I think that it's one of those things, it's a category that you have to be extremely careful of because of the fact that 14-year-olds, they might be out there. I mean, I know that sometimes it's even 12. They're out there sexually active.
Oh, yeah. Well, finding a 16-year-old virgin's like finding a fucking unicorn these days.
But there are, they're usually fucking another teenager. So for me, it's hard for me to go into that because of the fact that I really don't have that until you hit the 20, 21-year-old range. If there's a 16-year-old going out with an 18 or 19-year-old, you still have the legal issue going on, but they're still considered close enough in age.
In some states.
Right, correct. And you still have, them still in close enough age range that you go, okay, it's acceptable because they're in that age range. But
right, it's kids being kids. They're just kids rolling around the backseat.
So after the 21-year-old range, then it's a whole different ballgame in my eyes. I mean, after the person hits 21, for some reason that's just a number in my head, and I'm not sure why. But after that, I believe that the numbers really are, you feel as old or as young as you are inside. It's not about your age anymore.
Yeah, and one of the things that always kind of made me wonder about that, about the whole phenomenon is just, like, okay, so you're like 40, right? And you got the hots for like a 16-year-old girl, but like a 22-year-old girl, that's not getting it for you. Someone's only half your age, but not in high school anymore. That doesn't work. So you got to go to there's just something about it that is, as I said earlier. I mean, it's physiologically and psychologically understandable that people have all kinds of desires that we don't act on, but there's something inherently icky about it. There just really is.
I think that at that point they have to kind of like look at themselves about that and take a look at it because there might be something more going on there. And I think that
buy a cheerleader outfit for your wife or something. Perfectly valid way to deal with that, actually.
Yes,
a little bit of good-natured role playing.
Very good point.
All right, so the last listener question we have to talk about is Jim, who is trying to get his high school sweetheart, who he is still with several years later, to kind of get out of high school mode when it comes to sex. They don't have sex very often, especially for somebody in his early 20s who would, twice a day would be great. He's getting twice a week. And he's actually getting, it hurts me to even say this, he's getting blowjobs with condoms from his girlfriend of 5 years.
I can't even imagine that because, first of all, that would just, to me, be a very uncomfortable experience.
Oh, and you should know, he specifically asked for your input on how to get her over the blowjob thing because apparently with the audience at this point, you already have a reputation for being a good little cocksucker. So he specifically asked for your advice on the blowjob issue.
Okay, my face red?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Just checking.
Yes, lovely shade. I call it pomegranate.
Well, I have to say you really did help me. I always have enjoyed giving blowjobs. I hate to admit that on the air, but it is ending the sexual dark age, so it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I think some people really like it and other people do not like it. So hopefully you can get her past that point. But if not, you might have to look at some other alternatives such as, hate to say it, but different relationship. Because if it's something that's important to you, I think it's important for you to have that. And I know someone who was married, dated the girl in high school. They ended up getting married, and many years she refused to give a blowjob, just refused it, did not want any part of it, and they ended up divorced. And so I think that it's important in your sexual relationship to have everything that you want in a relationship. So if you're not getting it, you need to, and I couldn't imagine getting married to somebody and not having that. Well,
and I told him one thing to do was to maybe try and get her listening to the show, because obviously, I have no problem slapping people in the face with the cold and hard or warm and wet, as the case may be, realities of sexuality. Anything specifically though on the blowjob issue, I mean, he's a guy, so I'm right there with him. I'm picturing myself in his position, going, "What the fuck," But he's also in a relationship with a girl he loves that he wants to make the relationship work out. So, is there anything sneaky that you would like to suggest? Or anything you can, suggest as maybe the cause of this phobia she has of a cock that's not wrapped in latex?
Well, first of all, she sounds like from what I read in his question to you that she's having some self-confidence issues.
Yeah, he made a strong point of that. Yes, absolutely.
And if she is, she may not be comfortable in her own skin, which might mean that she's not comfortable having sex in general, such as has to have the lights out and things like that. But first of all, giving a blowjob with a condom on, if I'm understanding that correctly, must be a horrible experience for her. And I would suggest that she listen to this episode, because I couldn't imagine giving a proper blowjob with a condom on. The taste.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, like if I was putting on latex gloves once, and I used my teeth to pull one of the gloves all the way on. I couldn't get that fucking taste out of my mouth for like an hour and a half. And that was that was like 2 teeth scraping a glove.
It's awful. So first of all, she might be concerned about when it comes and it's going into her mouth and it just does not excite her at all. She may not like the taste. And, I don't know if we covered this, because you asked me about the different things that you eat, if there's actually any different taste in your sperm. And
yeah, you know what? I talked about that I didn't get back to it when you were on the show with me for the last episode, but I talked about that with the listeners a little bit.
So I really never noticed a different taste, but he could try that. He could try, first of all, he needs to find out exactly what her issues are. So I think that perhaps listening to a couple of easy early episodes. Also, if she's extremely religious, there might be something there that is holding her back. So I think that he needs to understand what her issues are and sit down with her and say, listen, babe, we have to have a talk, because there's some issues here. And I want to make you happy, but I have to be happy as well. I have to be pleased and you need to be pleased. So we need to get to the bottom of this. And I think that he needs to sit down with her and write down her likes and dislikes, and he should do the same thing about that and try to whittle away, as I would say, at it one at a time. Maybe she hates the sperm taste in her mouth.
According to what he's saying, I mean, she's never had her mouth anywhere near an unwrapped cock, so she probably doesn't know anything about the taste of jizz. I mean, he's using condoms for sex and blowjobs.
Well,
so like it's almost like a force field, no skin to skin contact between his cock and her.
That's if she's honest, and I'm not saying she isn't. Did she do anything with somebody else prior to him?
Oh, that falls outside the scope of my information. So.
Right. So, but my point is...
somebody could have put her eye out for 3 days, there's that picture on the internet. Did you know that jizz comes out at 37 miles an hour? Sally didn't either, and now she's blind.
Well, I think he needs to sit down with her, seriously.
You like that, don't you?
I'm not saying, but...
You picturing the cop with the speed gun while the cock is squirting?
That and the other one with the new shake thing.
Oh, the fucking shake weight. Oh,
shake
yeah.
weight. I mean,
guys, the South Park season finale did a wonderful job.
What's the name of that episode, by the way? Because someone wanted to look that up.
Cream Fraiche. 14th season finale.
Okay, so I have to put that out there because someone was asking me about that.
Oh, one thing that I unintentionally skipped over when we were kind of running through the episode was Liz's 3-minute blowjob idea.
Oh, I love it. I love it. In fact, as soon as you told me about it, which didn't take long, he read it, immediately called me. I was excited about it, and I couldn't wait to see you so that I could say, could you please, put your cock out there for me? And you did, and... Well,
you've been doing that for years, though. So, I mean, it was like extra little inspiration for you.
It was. And you know me, I love that inspiration. It just kind of gets me going all day long. So I liked it. So thank you, Liz.
Yeah, so remember, girls, you all need to reserve the right to have your man whip it out so you can grab a handful, or a mouthful or whatever, pretty much whenever you want.
Or another woman or whatever.
Well...
Did I say that out loud?
Certainly more of an advanced concept, one step at a time, So regarding all of this, we're pretty much wrapping it up.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to any of the listeners?
Well, first I'd like to say thank you to Derek. Because of him, I believe I'm going to be getting a Christmas present that I have been wanting for a very long time. So thank you to Derek. And Curious Kitty, I want to say thank you to her for reminding us to have confidence in ourselves, because I think that that's what she did for me by hearing about her situation, is about confidence and knowing that when you're going in there, you're going to make somebody happy and please them. And to Liz for the new game that we're going to be trying out this weekend. I can't wait. And I want to thank everybody for listening in. And it's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing this with you.
No, I enjoy doing this with you too, baby.
You always have that little,
I do.
I love it.
All right, so it's about time to wrap up this listener mail episode, which I'm no longer even going to pretend these things are quickies because you guys are asking enough questions for me to run off at the mouth about a bunch of things. I actually didn't have quite enough space for everything that I wanted to get to today.
But I think that's great. I do.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's great that the listeners are listening. And by the way, we watch the stats and coming in, so we thank all of you for listening because he really is a lot of fun to...
Yeah, various server-powering gerbils of the internet, have favor on us. We'll hit 30,000 downloads by the end of the month. So,
and I hope that's okay that I mentioned Belinda and Aaron's name because they're always very supportive of...
Oh, I don't think I'll mind. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So thank you,
They're
ladies.
pretty good-natured free spirits.
Yes, I love them. They're a lot of fun.
So that just about brings this episode to a close. Eyes wide open, I kind of ran out of time since it's been a busy weekend for me. I don't want to rush through giving you some advice on your concerns that you posted on the website, so I'm going to wait a couple weeks for the next listener mail show. As always, I invite every single one of you to join the conversation by posting totally anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing me at jvaltheros@gmail.com, calling into the listener line at 517-376-3116, or tracking down Shara and I on Facebook, which you can do through the links on sexualdarkage.com. There is no topic or concern regarding sex or sexuality that I am unwilling to tackle, so hit me. If you're enjoying the show and you have iTunes, please take the time to give me a good rating and or review. That'll do a lot towards helping get the show out to more listeners and bringing about the end of the Dark Age just a little bit quicker. Next week's show will be all about the art of cunnilinguistics, aka art of licking pussy. And until then, this be me, JV Altheros, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.